Deceived by Humongous. Quote, faith is to the human what sand is to the ostrich. Unquote. Lenny Bruce. In the end of the movie Papillon, are you Steve McQueen's character or Dustin Hoffman's? Do you jump in order to be quote-unquote free or remain imprisoned on Devil's Island? Until you critically consider this sequence, you may simply cry as you watch it, being touched by the emotions it evokes. Let's logically review this portion of the flick, though. Papillon is a film allegedly based around the imprisonment of actual French citizens, Henri Papillon-Cherrier and Louis Degas. Cherrier was convicted of murder and Degas of counterfeiting and fraud. After both meet in prison and form an unlikely alliance, they become friends. Following several foiled attempts to escape, the men are sentenced to the infamous Devil's Island, which in the 1930s and 40s was a remote detention facility categorized as quote-unquote inescapable, due to being surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. In the end of the movie, having plotted his prison break, Cherrier leaps off a cliff into the treacherous sea below. After determining every seventh wave washes out to the open water, but all six prior smash violently against the rocks, McQueen's character times his quote-unquote liberation meticulously. Amidst the tide, he swims toward and climbs atop a makeshift raft he'd constructed of coconuts and rough-hewn sacks. Originally intended to be an escape for two, at the 11th hour, Degas elects not to follow his companion off the cliff, asserting, "You'll be killed. You know that." To which Henri responds, "Maybe." Hence, Louis is left to languish the rest of his days on Devil's Island, as Cherrier floats into calm waters, eventually reaching Venezuela. It's here Henri is released from prison after one more year of incarceration. Simply by jumping, you've displayed who you are. Whether you survive or not is of no consequence. Drowning will probably hurt more than watching Suze Orman orally service cattle for a contiguous 24-hour period. Even so, you've exhibited the substance of your soul. You reject enslavement at all costs. As Steve McQueen floats away on his ad hoc boat, the narrator interjects, quote, Papillon made it to freedom, and for the remaining years of his life, he lived a free man, unquote. Well, that's a load of shit the size of Rhea Silvia, the tallest known mountain in the solar system. Papillon may have escaped Devil's Island, but no human on this planet is free. We're all slaves to this system and thus incarcerated. The original Papillon movie poster reads, quote, For Papillon, survival was not enough. He had to be free, unquote. Unfortunately for Henri Cherrier, he never was free, and never would be until his dying day. Again, you can escape places like Devil's Island, but you're doomed to return to incarceration on a larger scale by the oppressive force of authority, i.e. government, money, religion, etc. Here again, you'll be coerced to pay in order to survive. Thus, your freedom will be nothing more than an illusion. You'll most likely be forced to enslave yourself at a quote-unquote job you despise in order to pay quote-unquote taxes, nothing more than extortion, and quote-unquote bills, no more than threats, so you don't find yourself homeless and starving. Furthermore, can we as a species escape Earth if we needed to? Not en masse, nor for a protracted period of time. Hence, we're all inmates on this planet, and as you know, inmates are not free. As in many prisons, some of the prisoners exist in more luxuriant incarceration, while others agonize perpetually. But a captive is a captive, and none are emancipated. Did you get the sense Degas was happy Papillon wasn't crushed against the rocks? Or sad? When he saw McQueen's character escape, was he pissed he himself hadn't jumped? Did Louis secretly wish Papillon would have been killed, so he wouldn't be reminded for the remainder of his days he also may have escaped Devil's Island? Just a commentary on how vindictive our species has become toward one another. since most of us don't comprehend we're literally all one. I was standing beside my boss, my most immediate captor, at this subjugation the ignorant refer to as a quote-unquote job, and I realized this person has no idea he's a slave. This entity has been incarcerated for 50 plus years and hasn't once comprehended he's imprisoned. Even though everything he experiences belies such, he still somehow believes he's free. No matter what definitive proof I show him, no matter how hard I try, this person will either never understand they're a slave or never acknowledge it. How does something like this happen? I cogitated as I stocked beer and cut garnishes. Why am I forced to engage in meaningless conversation about things that don't exist, i.e. America, the economy, Jesus Christ, etc., when I can't stop thinking about how asinine these people are or how badly I want our species to reclaim its freedom? As I boil simple syrup, I realize, of course this person adjacent me, rambling about Donald Trump's travel ban being a travesty, doesn't want to be free. This douchebag is so brainwashed, he'd probably murder his own kind to protect his captors, so he himself could remain a slave. To quote Jean Manning from Jonathan Eisen's book Suppressed Inventions and Other Discoveries, in which she encapsulates one of Wilhelm Reich's personal epiphanies, quote, he noticed that fear of freedom led people to cling to authority figures who promised a better life, unquote. Donald Trump, another impediment to the survival of humanity on Earth, shouted something useless from the TV over the bar. People actually stopped and listened. I couldn't believe I was incarcerated in this madness. How the fuck did I get here? Moreover, where the fuck was here? The person beside me didn't care, but I did. It was all I could think about. All any logical being should be thinking about. But this person was not logical. Hence, the truth was the one thing he'd never, in his entire existence on this, one of innumerable mental institutions of the cosmos, consider.